Namaste. This is Jayachandran on my sixth video on restarting tourism. We were talking about the draft tourism policy 2020 by Ministry of Tourism, Government of India in the last video. And this is in continuation of that. This is the second part of it. When I went through this draft policy at first, it came to my mind a saying in Malayalam language, Etile Pashu Pullu Thinnilla, which means a cow drawn on a piece of paper cannot eat grass. Similarly, these draft policy recommendations are prepared without having any basic study. A policy must be the foundation for the future planning of tourism in our country. But this draft is prepared without having any solid data on what the present condition of the tourism in our country. There is no factual data with Ministry of Tourism about how many tour operators, how many accommodation units, what are the popular tourism products in our country, and how many real tourists, both international and domestic, are visiting our country. All these recommendations made in the draft policy are just common demands. Ministry of Tourism, without the backing of proper legal existence, cannot even determine who is a tourist. Before this draft, Ministry of Tourism must have done an attempt to do a study at least some of its major tourist destinations, collecting data and feedback, and had discussions with the various stakeholders at various levels. This draft even speaks about creating destination management organizations as a limited company. Many of the conditions put forward in this draft on the DMOs is actually a direct question on the authority of the elected panchayat, the local bodies in our country. It talks about various governing bodies at various ministries, both at ministerial and official levels. But in DMOs, they very categorically avoid the elected members of the local panchayat as representative. The policy forgets that tourism at local level is more important part which directly influence the local life of the people. Ministry of Tourism forgets what it has been doing all these years while drafting the policy. It talks about 33 million tourists post-COVID and a 3.5 billion domestic tourists. What is the base of this claim? What is needed is a realistic, practical, and proactive measure to ensure tourism in our country survives and grows into an attraction for all kinds of travelers around the world. Kindly remember that in the previous video, I have been talking about the first two of the 10 pillars on which this draft policy is focusing on. I have covered first two of the pillars and I'm coming to the third one. The third pillar is about ensuring competitiveness, sustainability, destination management organizations, public, private, and community partnerships. It further talks about the destination planning, having a master plan, community participation in planning, smart destinations, the use of information technology and digital sector. Also, it talks about the development of theme-based circuits, Buddhist circuit, iconic destinations, priority for Northeast and Jammu and Kashmir, and special tourism zones. And the details about the management by the destination management organizations, its structure, its function, promotion through public private partnerships, enabling conditions, and also the robust framework on which it should work. But among all these, the formation of the destination management organizations, a very important point to discuss. The draft believes that it needs a coordinated action to achieve the common goods of tourism. It proposes this destination management organization as a special purpose vehicle to be registered under the Companies Act as a limited company. And the union, state, union territories, and the local governments will have the major share. And it also will have the financial institutions and these stakeholders in it. And it says that there must be a governing board, consists of a nominated members from different governments, union, states, and the local government, under the chairmanship of the concerned district collector. In metro cities, they say that a person at the administrative secretary of tourism department will be the chairman of these destination management organizations. Also, there will be an appointed chief executive officer, and they expect the finances to be generated out of sale of tickets and also user fees, which they are going to fix at various different destinations. And also it expects the contributions collected from stakeholders and grants from state, union, and local governments. But when we read through it, it makes a wonderful idea. But once we read it carefully, it becomes a different thing. It becomes a very non-practical white elephant which may eat the money from our treasury. This idea for a separate destination management organization is nothing new. Already a similar setup is there in states like Kerala as the district tourism promotion councils, which is chaired by the district collector himself. But we all know what these district tourism promotion councils are doing in the name of tourism in their respective areas. Even though it is not a limited company, it is having the similar system as it is in this draft. What they say is about the DMOs, having the chairman is the district collector and the members nominated from various different formats. And we all know who is going to be nominated. In fact, even in tourism promotion councils, nobody in the tourism industry knows who are the nominated members of these councils in Kerala. Permitting the destination management organizations to collect user fees and also collect all these entry ticket charges is definitely going to add more financial burden for every visits, because it is going to add the cost. Apart from that, the entry tickets are being collected already by the local governments who are the investors in that area. So naturally, it is not going to be easy to get their revenue taken over by the DMOs by this draft, what the draft policy says. And another financial burden is DMO will have a paid chief executive officer. It says that it will be a 3-year term for a CEO, and then the necessary office and its cost involved. So all these are going to add more burden on local administration in the name of tourism, because there is already existing systems in the local governments and the local state tourism departments. And then the nominated members of this DMOs. As I mentioned earlier, we all know that who will be interested in getting nominated, this present system what we have. The Tourism Advisory Board, which is constituted a few years back in Kerala state, we all know that of these advisory councils, advisory boards, and what kind of advice they have given so far to the government, and what government accepted from these advices of this board so far. So we have to consider our existing experiences before getting into such kind of conclusions. And making these DMOs as a limited company is definitely to exclude the tourism ministry from taking responsibilities of the actions conducted by these DMOs. So naturally, fund can be brought up to the DMOs, and whatever they spend, it is only having the liability as a company, and the policy makers will not have any responsibility on it. Instead of Ministry of Tourism directly intervening in the local development, restructuring of the district tourism promotion councils in a more transparent manner will do this job. And pillar 4, it is investment promotion and business development. It says that the goal is to attract investments, both domestic and foreign, and also to nurture startups and MSMEs in the field of tourism. In fact, tourism is still not an industry in our country, and the experts in getting investments is the Ministry of Industries, because they are the one who set up these guidelines of foreign investments and the areas where investments are permitted for foreign investments, etc. But my personal feel is that tourism being a very local activity, the foreign investments must be highly restricted, because it is not the huge big plans or big factories or big businesses that makes tourism. In the changing global scenario, the authentic natural experiences of a country they visit makes tourism. So every village does not need a 5-star hotel, because this draft says that the investment from foreign countries, they expect in mostly building infrastructure like hotels. So that should be limited mostly to urban areas or maybe a few of the beach destinations. But other than that, I am of the opinion that foreign direct investment on tourism must be restricted. Making tourism as a industry, even though many states have declared it, but most of the governments have not actually made that into the category of an industry. So the problem now many of the stakeholders face is getting financial assistance in terms of loans from banks, because normally banks, their guidelines for offering loans is based on the present industrial parameters, and many times the tourism parameters will not match with that of the bank provide a loan. So this is where the government should intervene and create a proper guideline and a proper framework for the entrepreneurs in tourism to approach the financial institutions, get loans and other benefits. But the draft policy is not at all touching on those kind of points anywhere. Many of the points in this section, the role of Ministry of Tourism is very doubtful, but they can play. because Ministry of Tourism does not have any expertise or experience in this area. What they are mentioning in Pillar 4. Also, the refund of GST for the foreign travelers, extension of the input tax credit to tourism components in travel institutions, all will be definitely challenged by the various state governments, because in turn it is going to affect their revenue. So this kind of offers, without having a proper dialogue before and trying to include it in the policy, will backfire when it comes into a serious discussion or when it comes to in practice from various different states. And interestingly, it makes a very passing remark, and one of the core area of rural development of tourism is what the policy envisages in the women entrepreneurship and women development involvement, creation of jobs for women in this draft. It only just makes a passing remark in one single line. Another one-line remark is that an e-marketplace for guides. Already there are plenty of portals which is directly catering to the entire world, where all guides can market themselves. And Tourism Department, Ministry of Tourism, Government of India, in fact, abolished already the title guide in Indian tourism. Instead, they are trying to create a new terminology called tourist facilitator. But this draft, which is made a few months back, still talks about a e-platform, e-portal for guides. I don't know what they intend to do by making this line on this. Pillar 5 talks about diversifying tourism product to customize our bouquet of products to attract visitors from specific markets, both as geographic entities and interest groups. The draft focus on key objectives on which any business would love to have is year-round visitation, dispersion across the destinations, increasing length of stay, and propensity for repeated visitors. This is what every tourist destination wants to. But what kind of basic data available with the Department of Tourism now to analyze, assess, and study how can we improve these facilities? See, this is what one of the core problem what I find in this draft. It talks very nicely without having any solid platform from where they can start working on to achieve the goals. In principle, all of us will agree and wish to have what this draft is imagining about. But how to achieve it and from where to start, where do we stand now, all these things should be first found out, and there is no mention how we are going to do this in this draft policy. It gives several areas where tourism products can be made and improved, but MOT must take initiative to gather information from all exist products and the owners of the product who actually run these products, because Ministry of Tourism does not have any data on what is the popular tourism products in the country, because there is no way that they have any facility to collect it, because majority of the tourism activity providers are unknown to the Ministry of Tourism now. We should have a system to collect this information and evaluate before we should come out with proposals on how to improve further. In today's video, I have covered 3 more pillars, the third, fourth, and fifth out of the 10. What I request all stakeholders, please do not expect the big associations of stakeholders, especially the travel agents and tour operators, will take any initiatives for any kind of serious debates on this, because all these months we were having no work. None of these organizations took any step to have a serious, meaningful debate among us, among the stakeholders, to make us understand what exactly is this policy and what is the plus and minuses, and what should be a common suggestion from us after this debate. Should we submit to the government to make this policy a really good one for the future of India's tourism? I think it is a responsibility of all of us individually to go through the details, come up with your suggestions, and interact directly to the ministry, providing your suggestions. Also, bring it to the forums where you are all being part. Nowadays, social media gives us a great platform to discuss and debate things on. So every point which is coming, because every sector, every point which is mentioned in this draft, many of us are specializing on different areas. We can bring out very meaningful debates on this and come out with a very useful suggestion, creative suggestion to the Ministry of Tourism, and help them to make this policy a really good one for the future of our country. I request kindly do subscribe, those who have not, and I will be coming back with the rest of the policy analysis in the coming days. And thank you all. Stay safe.